What is happening there? J Gaming Dude here, and whoop, I seem to have accidentally just gone to like the main menu, and also deleted my save by accident, but that's fine. So I'm here to do a review of The Legend of Spyro: A New Beginning, and you might be like, why would you review a game that's this old? Well, if you haven't noticed, during my streams, I have been playing older games, and this was actually a game that I had just recently finished as part of my streams. So, I'm just going to give like a sort of a quick review of the game and kind of give my thoughts on it because this is actually not the first time I've played this game. I actually did borrow this game from an old Video Easy, which I feel like people would closely relate to like a blockbuster from back in 2006 when this game originally came out. That being said, though, check out the derpy look on. So, just to kind of, I guess, start off with certain things. First and foremost is that I don't actually like the look of either Sparks nor Spyro in this game. I really don't think either of them look particularly good, like their redesigns. Obviously, you can hear that Sparks does in fact talk in this game, and I really don't like Sparks talking. Like, David Spade doesn't do his character any justice. The writing is absolutely awful. And in fact, now that I'm thinking about it, the story itself is not particularly good. Because the thing is that I just kind of stopped paying attention part of the way through. As far as what the story is in this game, it's basically Spyro journey, like, so it's basically a soft reboot where Spyro has to like learn that A, he's a dragon, and B, rescue dragon elders in order to try and beat the big bad called the Dark Master. But Dark Master has taken another dragon that was born alongside him called Cinder, taken hostage in a way. And there is a lot of story in this game that there really kind of has no reason to be. It tries to go for a darker approach as well, which I don't think lands particularly well. So that's the story aspect in a nutshell. Not a fan. Now let's talk about the combat, because luckily I've somehow found a point in which combat really starts. And I don't know if you've noticed, but basically the combat for this game is basically beating enemies up in a using melee focused combat in battle arenas, and that basically is kind of what makes the game what it is. So now Spyro's got melee attacks and whatever have you. In addition to that, you can still use your flames and stuff. They're just not as effective as they were. You can also use a mixture of ground and air combat, but this is easily where I think Legend of Spyro: New Beginning really falls apart for me, is that this isn't a Spyro game anymore. Again, it takes a lot of elements from Spyro A Hero's Tale, where you have the ability to double jump as so, and also if you want to glide, you need to press X and then hold X a second time to glide, and if you ever let go of X, you'll stop gliding immediately. Now, that being said, though, like I said, there's melee combat, but there is also different elemental breaths in this game, being fire, ice, earth, and electric, and have their different uses in combat. But obviously, for the significant majority of the game, you're most likely going to be using fire for fighting and electricity for solving some puzzles every now and again, whenever it asks you to. And the game's combat is incredibly boring because it all is basically very samey stuff. You're just kind of running around and bashing your horns into your opponent until they eventually die, and also everything has a health bar. So basically this very much falls combat-wise similarly to that of what you expect to see from a God of War or a Devil May Cry in some instances, except that this game is extremely easy and incredibly short because I managed to beat the game in under 6 hours. So that really isn't saying much, and again, as you've noticed, lots of cutscenes. So I feel like you're going to be spending more time sitting down and watching cutscenes than you are actually playing the game. There are a decent amount of bosses in the game, and none of them are particularly challenging, because if you max, and here's a fun tip, don't upgrade your breath until you finally reach the first boss at the ice region, which is a giant dude in armor, and basically just upgrade your what's it called, your breath, your fire breath to max, and you'll be good to go from there. That being said, you do have a secondary breath ability, which is that you can throw bombs of different elements, and they kind of do different things. The fire bomb basically does a decent amount of damage. The electric bomb can trap enemies in midair, in this sort of like electric net, and I can't remember what the ice one does. I think that's supposed to be used to freeze your enemy a little bit more easily, so that the next hit that you do after you've completely frozen them actually, deals a decent amount of damage. And like I said, combat is relatively samey, because all you're going to be doing is fighting these blasted baboons for basically the entirety of the game. And these baboons are just dressed differently in each of the different locations that you'll be traveling to, until you basically fight Cinder at the very end of the game, where you will actually lose track on where you're supposed to be going. And in addition to that, the fact that basically the entire game is you following a path, so it's very much hallway simulator-esque. So you basically not only have lost the control scheme and the very feeling of playing a Spyro game, but also the very format of which Spyro games are known for, which is, having at least some open areas, of which there are very little to none at all in this game. And collectibles are very much like non-existent in this game, because of course the different color gems are used for, basically recovering different things. Red gems for your health, green gems for your breath, purple gems for your fury attack, and blue gems, I think, for your upgrades. So it is what it is, unfortunately. This game is incredibly disappointing, and not at all the Spyro experience in any way, shape, or form. If you're going into this hoping for classic Spyro, you will be sorely mistaken. You firstly are sorely mistaken, but you will also be very disappointed. I think that after playing, what's it called? A Hero's Tale, I think, is basically what this game leans in more of, and I really don't like A New Beginning, if I'm being completely honest. Not only it being short, but honestly, it being short might actually be more of a good thing than a bad thing. But with all that being said, if I were to give this game an out of 10 rating, I would almost certainly give this a 4 out of 10. It's a bad game. It's not fun. It's incredibly short, though that might be for a good reason. The controls are completely balked, similarly to that of A Hero's Tale. I feel like Enter the Dragonfly was really like the last good Spyro game that released up until the release of this game in 2006, and Chrome Studios definitely balked the combat system by making it more like a God of War or Devil May Cry style of game. All of the enemies are incredibly similar. In fact, they are exactly the same, just dressed slightly differently. All combat scenarios are basically the same, including the fights against bosses, once you understand their movement, and a fully maxed out fire breath can basically just take bars of health off these guys fairly quickly and fairly easily. In fact, the most difficult boss is likely going to be the first boss that you fight, which is where my hint came in and would make the game significantly easier in the long run. Outside of that, there really isn't much more to say. The music isn't particularly great. The writing is absolutely awful. The story is there, for lack of a better term, and very much something that's going to annoy you throughout, because again, like I said, I just completely tuned out the story for the most part. And yeah, this is the Legend of Spyro: New Beginning. I don't really know what else to say. Maybe I might play the other two games further along down the line, because this was a trilogy, which includes An Eternal Night and Dawn of the Dragon being the second and third respectively. But until that time comes, I'll probably just maybe cool it with a Legend of Spyro for the time being. But with all that being said, though, let me know what you guys think about this game and whether or not you've played it, its writing, its everything, especially if you've watched my streams of it. In the comments below, like the video if you liked it, subscribe to the channel. I'm aiming for 500 subs by the end of the year. And with all that being said, I do upload every day, so I'll see you guys tomorrow.